35, or 34, 33. Spot 33 are the Incredible Hulk guys and the number 181. On the number 181, the highlight here again. On the next 181, here you go there. You put 3,000 down here. You can do 30 to 3,000. You can do 30 to 32. And 21, 22, 23, and 23, 23, down 4. And 24, 2400. And 24, 23 online, 2400. And 24, 2300 on 100.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Source Material. We're going live, Dave Youngins. Hope you're ready to rock and roll.
I'm ready. Do it.
Me and Dave, this is Golden Age Dave, ladies and gentlemen. He's been mentioned many a time on the podcast. We're up at over 150 episodes, and I'm sure Golden Age Dave got mentioned on at least 50 of those episodes, I would say. So, Dave, me and you had the opportunity to take part, you somewhat by, I guess, proxy, since you were a little ways away.
You were doing the bidding for me, mostly.
Yeah. I had the chance to go up this past Friday on the 6th of April to Sugarcreek, Ohio, to take part in one of the largest comic book auctions I have ever seen in person. I mean, ever.
A 50,000 comic books, one owner collection.
I mean, dude, yeah. You said you went, and I know you went to find some comics there a while back. I think was it on Rhode Island or somewhere?
Yeah, I went to an auction down in Rhode Island probably about a year ago, where it was they were selling the inventory of a comic store that went out of business.
Well, you saw pictures of what I posted. I sent you. I mean, did it compare? Or
yeah, it was comparable. I think at that particular auction there was about 250 long boxes. There's been a little bit more long boxes, but they certainly didn't have the those key comics.
Those keys, yeah. We're going to be talking about that for sure. So let me give an idea of how my journey went that day, just real quick. I didn't know what I was getting into as a purveyor of auctions ever since Dave talked me into going into one. I think that was back in 2010 or 2011. He talked me to go into one in Belpre to go see, because they had a couple key issues there. Well, I've been hooked ever since.
Once you buy those, get some cheap comics for, you're hooked.
Oh, dude. I mean, I went to that one in Belpre and I wasn't too impressed. You got, I bought you a comic and it wasn't in the greatest condition, but regardless, there were people that were walking out of there with some pretty decent deals. And then I went to an auction, like, I don't know, it was a little while after that. It was a few more months after that. And I went to a place where I found comics that I was able to get for like almost, I think it was 13 cents a piece. And I was floored. I was like, okay, this is the best way to get a lot of comics for very, very cheap. So I've been going to a lot of auctions since then. I see if it's on Auction Zip and it says comics, I get a little alert or an email and I go check them out if they're usually within the area. And sometimes you got to make a decision. You've got to make a decision as to whether it's worth your time to go, because you could be sitting there for quite a while. And if it's just for chump change, you got to really make a decision as to whether your time that day is worth the investment. The other thing is, what are the condition of the comics? What type of comics are you usually getting? Me, I'm the bulk buyer where I'm just like, I don't care what it is, as long as I get long boxes for really, really cheap. That's all I'm about usually. But I have never seen anything like this before in my life. This guy who owned this collection, I think his name was Danny Fisher. He had passed away and he had collected comics for clearly years and years. I don't know if this man was up in age, but he had some comic books that were, wow. He had a ton of runs. What stood out to you about this auction amongst others that you've been to and had seen?
Yeah, I mean, he had looked like some, I'd say going back to maybe the mid 60s. Probably started collecting. There was some keys in there. There was an Incredible Hulk 181. He had an Amazing Spider-Man 129, which was the first Punisher. Had some lots of the early Silver Surfer series from the late 60s and 70s. And really, the comics looked like they were in pretty good condition for an auction.
Mm-hmm.
No CGC graded comics were in the auction.
That was curious. We didn't see any. They were all loose, and there wasn't anything that was CGC at all.
Yeah, in some collections where I've seen where it's like a one-owner collection, a lot of times they'll send it to CGC, especially if they're potentially high grades, and then they get also they'll set it for like it's a specific collection for one person since it's a one-owner collection. There's several collections that are well known, like the Mile High collection, and that they get certified by CGC if they're collected by one owner.
Yeah.
But this particular auction didn't have that certification either. But despite that, the prices were still relatively high. For some of the sales on the issues.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of those. We'd known about this auction about a month ahead of time, and there was 50,000 comics there, ladies and gentlemen. But on Proxy Bid, they put some cataloged items, is what they called them, on Proxy Bid, which turned out to be like a little over 400 lots. I think it was like 430 lots on Proxy Bid. Now, that could range from one single issue to up to 10, 30. I think there was 30 issues, 60 issues at one point of a series that was on Proxy Bid. They gave people around the world the opportunity to bid on some of these more covetable, I don't know if that's a word or not, more coveted comics that were in this guy's collection. So let me talk about the format real quick and what the place was like. So I drive up there. It's about an hour and a half at the most for me. It's 70 some miles, and it's almost all interstate. So that was kind of nice. Sugarcreek's not a very big town at all. It's Amish country here in Ohio, so kind of seemed interesting to me. I mean, not too far from there was Canton, which really surprised me that Canton was not the place where these comics were at. It's big. That's a pretty big city. But no, it was Sugarcreek is where we headed at. So I didn't know what I was getting into. I've never been to this auction house before. So I roll into Sugarcreek, and I'm like, this is going to be out in BFE, and I'm going to have to, walk through the weeds to get to this barn. All these comics are going to be at. That is not the case. Kaufman Auctions, I believe. Kaufman Realty and Auctions, or I can't remember. I know it's Kaufman something. They're the ones
Kaufman Realty and Auctions. Yeah.
There we go. They hosted this, and I'll tell you right now, they did a great job. They have this huge, and I mean huge warehouse that every single long box was on a table in order for just the right height so you could look through them. There was nothing on the ground. It was all up on top to where, so they and then imagine this, they had 200. I bought the last two auctions, and I just looked at it today, or excuse me, the last two lots of the box lots that were not cataloged and were not online. They had a tag for every single box that was up there. And I bought the last two of the uncatalogued items, and that tag I was looking at today said 268. So they had 268 boxes. Now, some of them were long boxes full of bagged comics. Some of them were just full of completely loose comics. And then some of them weren't long boxes at all. They were more like a very, I don't know, if you go to like a fruit stand or something and they give you a big box of oranges, okay, that's kind of like what some of these comics were in. They're in these like heavy duty wax boxes that you could put comic books in. You could put, well, what I bought was graphic novels, and mine was, completely full of these graphic novels. So anyway, just to give you a thought of the sheer scale of what we were looking at, 268 boxes all on tables, and you could easily go through them. So the problem is, I say easily go through them, it's still going to take you time. I mean, dude. I got there at auction started at 11. I got there at like 8:30, I think, 9 o'clock. I was like, okay, I've got this task in front of me to go through all these long boxes and figure out which one's got what in it, which one should I pay for, which one should I shoot for, who's got the first appearance of this, first appearance of that. And to do.
How long did it take you to do that?
I think I came back out and called you at like, it was 10:15. So close to an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Get through?
I legitimately let's try this. I skimmed. I think I called you and I still had more to go.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've got to go back in there.
You're like, I'm tired, man. I can't. I got 100 more to go.
I've got to take a nap. There's no way, unless you would have showed up there the night before and did digging as well. There's really no way to get through and have a really good idea of what everything was. The good thing was this guy, he was a smart collector. He kept all his stuff together. Usually the loose stuff, you could tell at some point, like towards the 2000s and forward, he didn't care. He just kind of threw it in a box, damn the bag, damn the board, damn the, there was no like, you were going to look through these loose ones and there would be like an X-Men and then you're looking at DC all of a sudden and then an independent. So it was just like he went to the store, threw them in a box and that was it. Now there was probably a good 30 or 40 boxes that were like that. But the majority of them were all in runs. That was the uncataloged stuff. The catalog stuff was on the other side. So I go take a look at those and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here later. But, I had the opportunity to go up and actually, put my hands on some of these issues, these great issues that we're going to kind of mention here. Now the format of the auction went like this. And I thought this was very interesting. They had these these roller trays. Okay. You could put pretty much 3 long boxes on a roller tray, roll them up there. They would have box 1, 2, and 3. And the auctioneer would go like this. He goes, okay, up for bid, your choice out of these 3. So right then and there, you better know what's in box 1, 2, and 3 if you're going to be bidding. You got your choice. So what would happen is a lot of times a guy would bid and, okay, which one you want? You want 3 times your money? And the guy would be like, no, I just want box 4. So he would come up, get box 4, or let's stick to 1, 2, 3 example. He would come up and get box 3, and then the auctioneer would do something interesting. I didn't like this, Dave. The auctioneer would go, okay, guys, two times the money. So it wasn't 2 for 1 money. It was 2 times the money. And he was selling the next 2 boxes. And whatever they went up for bid for, you got them for 2 times whatever you bid. So if you bid $100, boom, you got those 2 boxes for $100 a piece.
Okay.
It was
so
you could
give you a choice.
He would not give you a choice after that first bidder won. Then whatever was left, if there were 2 boxes left, you had to buy both of them if you wanted one. So yeah, it got odd. Well. The thing is that the dude had I don't know. I mean, he had time constraints upon him. This auction went from 11 to 1:30. Of course, it really sped things along that he was doing that. But it went from 11 to 1:30, and then we had a big break in between there up till 3:00 when the catalog stuff started. I kind of want to be like, oh man, that was kind of crappy. Then again, I mean, it sped the auction along. It didn't part everything out. So we went through all 200 and some boxes within an hour and a half. So there's kind of like how the format was. Now, me and you, we had our eyes on a few things. Number one, we were going to look for any key issues we could find in those boxes. What was the deal with the, what was it called? The Eternals? Not the Eternals.
Elementals?
The Elementals. Can you kind of give me an idea? Is that just something you personally wanted to get? Because I saw a run there, and I wish I would have had I'm pretty certain that box went for close to 100. Let me look here, actually. I could tell you.
Yeah, I think you said it sold for $75, and in particular in this auction too, there was a buyer's premium of 15% for anybody who was bidding online.
Yeah, 10%
plus the shipping on it. So
good point, man, because it was 10% buyer's premium if you're there. Of course, if you're there, you don't have to worry about shipping. You pick it up, you go home. Right. So, and
a lot of auction websites do charge a buyer's premium. If you buy things on Heritage, they charge a buyer's premium. But it's limited to I think $15 or something, depending on, it's not a percentage. It's just, it goes up to a certain amount. And then the other website, the major auction website's Comic Connect, which they don't charge a buyer's premium. So, which makes that more attractive sometimes.
So
typically too, yeah, with the auctions, they're charging the buyer a premium, but they also charge the person selling a premium too. So
dude,
they charge them like 15%, and then they're charging the buyer 15%. So they're making 30%.
I could not believe that. I walked out of there thinking to myself, how much money this auctioneer made in this one auction. If he charged the person putting it up and then charged 15% on just the one comic that went for the most, he easily made, I think it was like $300 in just that one sale.
Yeah.
And I was like, this auctioneer had to have cleared, I don't know, at least $5,000 or $6,000, if not more than that, in this one sale. I mean, that's amazing to me. And I was sitting there trying to figure out how much the guy I can't believe that they charged them to put the stuff up for sale, but they have to. I mean, if not,
Yeah, there was an auction several years ago. It was on Proxy Bid. It was a single owner collection too. It was called the Mound City Collection, and that particular collection though had some really fantastic, like X-Men #1, grade of like 9.6, was one of the highest graded copies, and I think all of that collection sold for like $2 million.
Jeez.
Total. So that auctioneer made quite a bit of money off of that one.
Wow. Well, now I understand why this facility was so nice. I mean, because it was so extremely clean. The way that they had it was almost like this industrial site or an industrial garage where they had all these shelving units, and pretty much all the shelving units had these very large wooden boxes. I assume that, whatever auction was up next, like next week, or they would just shove stuff in that box, and then a tow motor would come up, pick that stuff off the pallet and put it up there on the shelf. And it made things the place looked immaculate. I'll just put it that way. But all right, so let's talk about a couple of the things that I saw in the uncatalogued items. One of the things I first set out to look for was a New Mutants run. If this guy was putting together, runs of comics, he was doing that. That was evident. I had to find the New Mutants and see if, number one, the first appearance of Deadpool was in there and the first appearance of Cable, because both of those came out in the New Mutants run and not too far apart from each other. I think less than 10 issues apart from each other. Well, whoever had done this auction, it was either whoever did this auction or it might have been before the auction hit. They had scoured that and pulled those two appearances out. There was just about everything else in there for the New Mutants, but that was not in there. The Miracle Man box. Okay. Now, folks, remember, these are long boxes, but we're just looking for kind of key issues that kind of sprinkle in through the long boxes themselves. The Miracle Man box that contained Miracle Man is it 15 or 16?
15.
15.
Yep.
One of the most,
I think the most valuable ones out of that series.
Yeah. $235 for that long box. Okay. Now you can imagine me, old Jesse Starcher, who come into this auction saying, I'm going to spend $40 on a long box at most. And then I'm watching long box after long box sell for $100, $110, $200. I'm just like, okay, I am either outmatched or I'm going to sit here and outweight these guys' wallets. Me and Dave had a discussion about that.
Jesse, I'm sorry.
Dave's like, well, these people came to play. And I was like,
no, because I've been to auctions where I've tried to, I've just bid because I know the guy next to me is going to continue bidding.
Yeah.
And then in particular, there was an auction I went to once where that's what I did. And the guy was so mad. He's like, man, I paid more on this lot than I did the last one. And I'm like, yeah, well, why don't you stop bidding then, you idiot? But anyway.
That's so funny that you say that, because the guy beside me was doing the exact same thing. He would not let anything go. It seemed like in that first, at least the first hour to an hour and a half, this guy, the boxes would start at 25. I mean, clearly the auctioneer would start out, who'd give me $100? Nobody's going to bid. $50. Nobody's going to bid. 25. Boom. Hands start going up. Well, as soon as you heard the word 25, Leroy beside me, he's got his hand in the air. He knew that a long box is definitely worth $25. Anybody in that knew that $25 was enough for a long box. But then he would continue to bid, and he would easily go up to $100 to $150 on a long box. It wasn't really until, after about that hour and a half mark, he started getting choosy. He was like, okay, yeah, I only want this one. I'm pretty certain it's because at that point he had amassed, and I am not kidding you, ladies and gentlemen, he had amassed at least 30 to 40 long boxes out of that collection. And they were the guys would bring them and stack them behind him. And he had this huge, I don't know how. I really don't know how he even I don't know if he brought help with him, because it just looked like he was by himself. I don't know how he got them on the truck. If he brought a truck, I don't even know if he brought a truck. I'm sure he did. If he was something. I mean, so he's pulling stuff in left and right. We talked about the Miracle Man box, the New Mutants. There was nothing there. Remember when you told me to look for John Byrne's Next Men and look for Hellboy, first appearance of Hellboy? So yep. I go back in there and I am looking, and I can't. I mean, I'm like, well, shoot, I didn't write it down. So I had to go back through as quickly as possible and try and find this long box out of these hundreds of long boxes for the Next Men series, and could not find it. So I have no idea what box that was in. I know I saw John Byrne's Next Men in there, so there probably could have been a run. There was a box of Amazing Spider-Man. I'm pretty certain went for $130 that I wanted to get a hold of.
Did they have the first Venom in there? Was the first Venom in that box?
What are we classifying as first Venom?
Amazing Spider-Man 300.
300? I don't remember that one. Was that in the catalog stuff by chance? Because I know they had...
No, there was no Amazing Spider-Man 300 in the catalog.
Okay, I don't remember seeing it. I don't remember it off the top of my head. It's a very good possibility I would have missed it, though. The Saga of the Swamp Thing, which started from issue 22, that run started from 22 forward. And me and you, I think we said that the first appearance of Alan Moore on Swamp Thing was...
Alan Moore's run, it started at issue 21.
At 21, so they pulled that out. This one started
21.
22.4. I know it wasn't in there because I went back in and I was like, okay, the one we're looking for is not there. But that box went for $200. Oh, there was an Ultimate Spider-Man, and I think I told you about this, but there was an Ultimate Spider-Man lot that had, it was a weird issue. I'd never seen this before. It said it was like issue 1, 2, 3, and it had Ultimate Spider-Man on the front. So I think it was the first 3 issues of Spider-Man together in a book. I need to find what this thing looks like, but I'm pretty certain it was signed by Bendis. That box
did it have Dr. Octopus on it?
No, it had like a red spine, and then it said 1, 2, 3 up the side.
So they had that first Alan Moore Swamp Thing's at issue 20.
20. Yeah, they knew what they had.
There is a particular Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, that has the first 3 issues in it, or it's quite valuable.
Oh, you're kidding me.
And I actually think I have it. I just don't know where it is.
I'm looking for it right now to see if I have. I took pictures.
I think I'm aware of it. Has a like Dr. Octopus on the cover. The Ultimate Spider-Man #1 2002 reprint has a Dr. Octopus on the cover.
What's the 1, 2, 3 look like? Is that the one I'm describing? It has red.
That reprints issue 14 and 15. So that's actually, I think, the one I got.
Well, I can tell you that box went for $200. So that might be a reason. Plus, it was signed by Bendis, which is a hot name right now. I mean, my goodness. There it is. Okay, I found it, dude. Yeah, it's collected edition. On the right-hand side, it says issues 1, 2, 3. Collected edition from 2002. But yeah, it was signed by Bendis, so I didn't know that was more of a collectible issue.
Well, I wonder if I have that. I don't know.
I lucked into some Bendis signatures a long, long time ago. One of the best auctions I ever took part in my entire life. Okay, so let's see what else. Now, you remember our talk about the Silver Surfer issues?
Yeah.
What were you telling me to look for in that?
So in particular, this auction, there were 2 lots of Silver Surfer comics. And this is from the very first series of the Silver Surfer that came out, I think, in the mid-'60s, late '60s, early '70s.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did a reprint of the series in the '70s, I think started in 1969, called Through Fantasy Masterpieces. Or Fantasy Masterpiece. I can't remember what the exact title is, but in this particular auction, I was following the bidding on the 2 Silver Surfer lots, and then the actual lot that was selling for more was the reprint. And I think somebody didn't realize that. And eventually, I guess at the auction, you said, Jesse, they actually took that lot out because somebody pointed out that they had it incorrectly described in the listing. So
yeah, dude, I've never seen that before. But I'm looking at the regular lot. And it sold for 17 books, number 2, 3, and 5 through 18, sold for $525. Now that was the actual Silver Surfer ones. The reprints, though, anybody watching here, here's a good example of a fantasy masterpiece. That looks like issue 1 of the Silver Surfer. But wait, fantasy masterpieces starring the Silver Surfer.
Well, here's a lot on Heritage. Well, this is an old sale. It's from 2010. So this was a box lot, Fantasy Masterpieces, Silver Surfer related short box with over 100 issues in it. of all the reprints, that sold for $143 in 2010.
And what were we watching them sell for? It was like $300 or something. It was
over $300, and it was like, just like 17 issues.
I'm really surprised that somebody spoke up because, and then again, I mean, the people that spoke up were the people on site who said, okay, because he brings them up there and he's like, Silver Surfer, here we go. And then somebody's like, no, you actually have the reprints up there. And they're like, what? Yeah. So yeah, that got taken off of there. I don't know what they were thinking. And I don't know the people who were bidding that stuff up who could it was clear on proxy bid what they were. They said fantasy masterpieces and you could see that, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could tell.
In the picture.
Of course, I've seen them before. I mean, I have all the actual comics from the original series, so I know what they look like.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, even though the description was wrong.
I mean, if you're paying that much money for comics, you should know what's buying.
You better know. You better know.
I mean, regardless of whether it's described a certain way, they did have pictures that had that. You could tell in the title what it was.
Yeah. Now in the long boxes, we had a Silver Surfer run, and there were a couple issues in the long boxes, the uncatalogued stuff that you were telling me to look for. Do you remember what those ones were?
Well, I guess in the second series that came out in the 80s, just some of the Thanos issues because Thanos is such a hot
you
character,
said it was it was Return. One of them was the Return of Thanos.
Yeah, I think it's like issue 34, and the first Infinity Gauntlet issue in that series sells for a good deal. And then some of they brought back Adam Warlock in that series, and a lot of the early Infinity Gauntlet stuff was in that series. So
that actually was probably one of the lower ones that got sold for $100.
Oh yeah, that
was considering. There were very few times where I saw a box of comics go for less than $45. There were some. Specifically, I have it marked down here. There was a box full of Wizard magazines. It's just a complete long box of Wizard magazines. That went for $40. So whoever bought that,
I would have bought that, Jesse. Bought that. I look through all my old Wizards all the time, man. I'm like reminiscing about the 90s.
That's right, buddy. That's right. Did you look through any of the pictures of stuff I got?
I did. I think
let's just say I was kind of upset with the fact that I got like 6 big thick ass issues of Fan Magazine by Overstreet from 1996. I'm not exactly pleased with that. Okay.
For comics, 96.
Overstreet Fan Magazine. So
those were the years of all those foil embossed covers.
Big chested Captain Americas coming at you by Rob Liefeld
with big guns and sword.
Did you by chance see? I don't know if you saw it or not, but somebody shared a picture of what Rob Liefeld had done a sketch of just this complete thing made out of pouches.
Captain America?
No, dude. It was a pouch man. He was just nothing but pouches that had a gun that was made of pouches that shot pouches. Just share that on Facebook. Freaking hilarious.
I was reading an old Wizard, actually a couple of days ago where it was like the death of Captain America. I think that was like 2008 or something.
Yeah, that wasn't too long
and they
ago.
were going through like all the people who had done runs on Captain America, and they had like one little section with Rob Liefeld's Captain America.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like, well, I really was trying to, do something different, and blah, blah, blah. They're like, everybody makes fun of you because you have made him get a big breast. And they had a picture of it. He was like, well, I was just trying to do something different.
Like I said, I walked out of there with 3 boxes of trade paperbacks and a few magazines. I got some really interesting stuff. There were boxes full of like Marvel and DC trades. So I walked away with 3. And the only reason I had 3 was because the auctioneer got me on that whole 2 times the money thing. And I was not going to walk out of there. I'd already won 1 box. I wanted something else. So I had to bid, and I bid. And here's the thing. I set my goal. I was like, okay, I'm only going to spend $40 per box here. Whoever was bidding against me got me to go to 65, and I walked home with it. So I'm not too upset considering, I mean, looking at the face value of these trades, like there was 3 trades in a box of stuff that I got upstairs that equaled, more than $60. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, something is only worth what somebody else will pay for it. So yeah, I'm looking at the face value, but usually you're not going to get the face value back from something like that. Trades do hold their value, but you got to find somebody that's wanting to buy it for that as well. So
hopefully a more mainstream trade too, like Avengers.
Yeah, man.
Marvel or DC or
few and far between though. There are few. I got like one box full of Marvel and DC stuff. The rest of it's like there's some Vertigo. I got a bunch of kind of like miscellaneous. I got some Image. I got this some of them are hardbacks. A good portion of them are hardbacks. Though, so I don't know, man. I hope to turn them around because if my wife finds out how much I spent, she will kick my ass. That's the truth. Well, let's move on to the main catalog. The catalog stuff that was on ProxyBid. Now, what we did here, we'll do top 10 of what sold. And I still can't believe that I was in the presence.
Well, keep in mind too, these were non-CGC graded comics. Generally, CGC comics fetch a higher price.
That's right,
because they're certified by a professional grader. They note whether there's restoration on any comic. So that's the biggest thing in buying non-graded comics, is that there's potential there could be a defect that you can't tell just by looking at it.
Did you know that they had that writing on them until I told you, like some of those issues until I told you? Or
I could not. I mean, maybe I could make out on a couple issues, but not. And not necessarily the pictures they had were not of all, you couldn't tell because the bigger lots like that Swamp Thing lot, they had them stacked on top of each other.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they did.
So there's no way I could tell about the writing.
Okay. Just to give our listeners an idea of what we're talking about, on some of these older issues, somebody had taken a pen and wrote, I assume some type of a code or something up on the top left. Usually that's where you would find it. Top left, right above, like if it was a DC comic where the DC, I think it's called the DC bullet. It's like a circle with the DC symbol inside. Anyway, they would take and they would write like C34963 up there in the top left. They did that on a lot of comics. Sometimes it was pen. Sometimes it was like a date stamper, like an old school date stamper, like you'd see at a library. They'd take it, stamp it on there. You and a couple of our friends here from the show had a idea of what that might be. You want to kind of explain to me again what that could possibly be?
I think one of your friends there said that it could be I guess it was a newsstand copy, and that was marked for that particular reason because it was a newsstand copy.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard. I checked in my CGC. I have I think it's a grading guide. I was looking for anything particular in there about it. I couldn't find anything. So I have heard. At times they used to stamp arrival dates on things, and I think I've read some things somewhere. So I don't know exactly that said. Yeah, when there's like newsstand comics, sometimes they would write in pen or ink or something in that particular area to note when they got the comic or some sort of reference number. So and I don't necessarily believe that affects the grade all that much. But I mean, certainly it would affect it. It's not going to be like a 9.8 or something, or a 10 if it had writing on it.
I'm coming from an age, me and you both come from an age where we're the speculators. And oh my goodness, don't bend that comic. Do not write on that comic. That's kind of what we were bred as comic book collectors in the 90s to understand. You wanted a mint condition, whatever. A collector of just about anything is the same way. They want the mint condition, whatever they want. These comics were from a time where, that really wasn't a whole mentality. I think the Swamp Things were, what would you say? Were those from the early 80s?
Not sure exactly when that series came out.
I want to say I
think it was from the early 80s, the very first Swamp Thing series.
If it ain't the 80s, it's the 70s, because it certainly isn't.
Yeah, it's either late 70s or early 80s.
Yeah, and back then that was not a, that wasn't the mentality. These guys weren't collecting to collect. These guys were collecting to read. What'd you say?
Yeah, they weren't collecting for investment.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so here we go. We're going to go from 10 to 1, Golden Age Dave, on the proxy bid top of this auction. And well, you talk about whatever issue you want, whatever you please let us all know what your thoughts are as we go up through the list. 'Cause I know there's one for sure you're going to just be like, you might have a few things to say.
Normally when I bid at an auction, I always go onto Heritage or some of the other sites and, do some research, see around approximately what those issues are selling for. Heritage has a good job of, you can look up the past auctions from like the past 10 years and can get a, perspective of what things are selling for now.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes, you've got to take into account the hot trend that's happening right now, which is clearly I've had like I overheard 2 or 3 people at that auction talking about the first Black Panther, because I think the first Black Panther was at this auction.
Yes, it was. It was not in the top 10 though.
No, it was not.
It would be, I don't know, sold for $600, but it was not in the top 10. Just
outside, as a matter of fact.
But that is certainly a hot comic now, and it has gone up substantially in value since the movie came out.
Yeah.
I personally do not own a copy of that because
Here's the world we live in, Dave. They're planning on making a damn series about Night Watch. Do you remember Night Watch?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, he was a horrible Spawn ripoff in the Spider-Man comics. And then I think he showed up during Maximum Carnage because I've talked about him on our podcast before, and I didn't even know who the hell he was. So they're planning on making a damn movie.
First appearance of Night Watch right now, okay? While it's still cheap. Buy a whole long box of them.
You could do that. I guarantee it.
I mean, I'm thankful for all these Marvel movies, right? Because they make all our comics go up in value. But
yeah,
they also make it unattainable to buy things anymore, too.
Dude, I'm kicking myself because I'm missing out on some of these things that you were smart enough to pick up back when we were in college. Right. You were the guy that was going off to half off books or the Bookery. I remember you and Fish talking about the Bookery and then finding some guy, he's got this dusty old first whatever. And you're like, I'll pay you this for it. And you talk him down. And then that's probably gone up so much because of some kind of a movie, a cinematic universe deal or whatever, TV deal even.
Sure. So,
yeah, you mentioned Black Panther just outside of the top 10. I'm going to start with our top 11 because we got a tie for number 10. Number tied for 10th. That's how I'm going to put it. 32 books of X-Men, 102 through 119 with duplicates of 103, 104, 106, 107, 108 through 110, and 113 and 119. That's a lot of books and a lot of duplicates for really early X-Men, right?
Well, that would be early issues when they did the revamp on the series and X-Men, with the new appearance of all the characters in Giant Size X-Men 1 and then, the reboot of the new team and everything in 94. Those are some early issues in that run with, I think John Byrne was doing those issues. But that's probably a good price for those. That's not astronomical.
$650. Went for $650
for 32 of those, and they look to be in high grade. So I would say that particular price is not out of question for that many of those.
Okay.
For a high grade.
Next up, House of Secrets, one book, number 92. Now this one, right quick for you chime in. This one, a good buddy of ours by the name of Dean Compton had some interest in, and we quickly found out it was outside of his price range. So House of Secrets, one book. Now I remember you wanted the issues that kind of surrounded this issue. It wasn't this one.
Well, I did actually want this one too, but it was a little pricey for a non-grade. I mean, it sold for $650 plus, the 15%. I think actually we said 14%. It is a 15% internet premium. So it is a little pricey for a non-CGC graded book, but it looked to be in very condition. It's first appearance of the Swamp Thing, and it's very famous. I think it's Barry Wrightston did the cover, so collectible for that reason also. A lot of people covet that particular cover.
Gotcha.
And he did a lot of those covers in that series of horror covers. It was pricey.
Yeah, man, $650. I was like, all right, for one book.
It's getting out of the range for a non-graded book. That's getting up there for you got some risk there.
I hear you.
There's something that you didn't see. So.
All right. Well, up next, Mystery Tales, 6 books, number 2, number 31 through 35. What is this?
That particular issues, I'm not really that familiar with Mystery Tales. But I would say there's some iconic horror, sort of these horror stories. The covers on them are what people go for.
Oh, okay.
in particular, I'm not too familiar with that series though. But yeah, honestly, I don't particularly collect. Well, I would have liked the Swamp Thing one, but I don't collect necessarily horror comics. So
yeah, I have no idea what's going on here. No clue. Sold for
$675.
$675. All right, moving up to $700. Green Lantern, co-starring Green Arrow, 3 books, 85, 86, 87.
So you have 2 iconic issues where it was, I think, Green Lanterns. They did issues on drugs.
This is Speedy, right?
Speedy, yes. Yep. So there's 2 very famous issues where they were issues on drug abuse, and then you have, I believe, the first appearance of John Stewart in issue 87. I don't think it's his first appearance, maybe first appearance as a Green Lantern. I haven't really followed the value on that issue too much. So, after the Green Lantern movie bombed, I don't know I know John Stewart plays the Green Lantern in I think the cartoon series. Is that correct?
Yep, he does.
So, he does have some popularity. I don't know why these 3 issues would sell for $750. I know issue, I think it's 76, the Green Lantern and Green Arrow team up the first run. That particular issue is, hot.
Yeah.
But I really haven't seen any other issues.
Yeah, the Speedy stuff, I
might look into this now.
Yeah, the Speedy stuff I've heard of before as it being such a groundbreaking story. I don't know if it was the first of its kind, but it was definitely kind of faux. Was this Comics Code approved, or was this one of those ones where they were like, Comics Code can't be?
Yeah, it could have been that. Yeah, that wasn't. They weren't approved by the Comics Code either because of the content. But I don't know that if that is true, but it could be one of the reasons why.
Okay.
They are more valuable.
Well, all right. So that was 700. Moving up to 725. On our top 10 here, we have 1, 2, 3. 3 sold to the guy that bought the Green Lantern issues. He bought that, and he bought one other lot, and then he bought the top spot on this list.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had some money, but let's go ahead and talk about $725 for X-Men 10 books, number 7, 11, and 13 through 20. Why are we going $725 for these?
Well, they're early X-Men. From the pictures, I can't really tell what kind of grade they are. So I'm only assuming they were, in a higher grade. You're looking at what, $75 an issue. So, I think that's probably not unheard of for early X.
Do you think that a run of comics helps boost what it could potentially sell for? Like, here we're talking to 7 and 11. There's 4 issues apart, but then we got 8 issues, an 8-issue run of early X-Men books. So with them being consecutive and 13 through 20, do you think that helps drive up the price for something like that because you now
Probably.
have a little bit of a collection? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. But I think I've seen complete runs of like Spider-Man and X-Men sell at auction for, I think I saw a complete run of Spider-Man 1 through 200 sell for like $3,000.
Wow.
So just 10 issue run is for $750. kind of but those Spider-Man may have been graded lower, and that was 3 years ago. So
yeah,
certainly the value may have increased, and that would no longer happen. But I've seen runs of comics go for less.
All right, well, let's move it on up here. Invincible Iron Man, 1 book, number 55, $800.
Iron Man 55. Okay, no, that's the first Thanos. All right, so yeah, we're talking about.
All right, okay.
Right. Iron Man 55, first Thanos, is the most valuable comic in that entire series.
Okay, then I step back. So what? Okay, you got a heritage comparison here?
Well, I got a 9.6 sold for February 22nd, sold for $3,824. I got a 9.0 that sold for $1,015.
That's
so
there.
This guy's betting that it's a high grade. So
I can already see some rolling on the spine. Do you see that?
7.5 sold for $776.75.
Okay, I could maybe say that this might be a 7. Maybe I'm just kind of. If you look at this issue, there is some. You can see the spines rolled at one point. You can see that easily just by the way it's kind of faded and the light's shining off the spine. Now, Dave, you're more of the. You understand how that affects value more than I do. Is that commonplace where they're just like, oh, okay, well, it's rolled the spine a little bit, no big deal?
I I think that would automatically put it down to like a 7.5 or an 8, a rolled spine, if not lower.
I
mean, it depends on the significance of the rolled spine, but
don't think you can make that judgment looking at the picture.
The way they make grades is, how many defects does the comic have? Every, 9 and above can only have like 5 defects. It can only be a certain type. I mean, I don't get into grading too much. I mean, because a lot of the comics I buy are certainly lower grade, 4 or 5, because it's very hard once you get to that level to distinguish, unless you spend a lot of time grading comics and analyzing them.
Yeah.
Which I don't have time to do.
All right.
You can tell what a 9.2 is, but 8.5, I don't know.
Let's move up. We're getting into the top 5 here. Top 5. Okay, we're getting into something that I love. Everybody knows that I love. Anybody listening to this podcast, at least 10 episodes of this podcast, I love The Punisher. And I got to see, for the second time in my life, at an auction, because Dave, I called you on the day that I saw my first ever Amazing
What did
Spider-Man.
that one sell for?
That went in a long box, and that went for way less than what this guy paid for.
Oh, that was in a long box? How much did it sell for in a long box?
Dude, okay, let me take you back. I'm going to take you back to the day of your first child's birth, all right?
When Anna was born, or was that?
When Anna was born, I called you because you were, I think, either going to the hospital or she was already born, one or the other.
Okay, so I have a reason why I didn't buy it.
And hey, if you're going to let Amazing Spider-Man 129 go, it's probably going to be a good idea to let that go, at least on a significant day, such as you being at the hospital with your wife while she's in labor with her first kid.
Madison bidding at an auction on the phone during that time.
Your wife would kill you. Oh my God. You never hear the end of it, at least. But so I walk in there, and this is the classic story of the Nemesis, where I walked in and I saw this 129 sitting there, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I had to call you. I called you and let you know what was going on. I think that's when you told me, hey, I'm on my way to the hospital. I'm like, dude, you wouldn't believe what I've seen here. So anyway, I go back in, and I'm at the auction with my wife, which is that's the worst thing that could ever happen to a man. When you take your wife to an auction, you cannot spend what you want to spend. I'll tell you right now, I would have been an upset man if I would have took her to this one we just went to here this past April, or here earlier this April. But anyway, so my wife is right there. I'll tell you right now, Dave, he walked away with that long box, probably under $150.
Oh, God.
I know, dude. I'm looking at this right now, and I'm like, why? And I remember when
your wife wouldn't be mad at you now, though, would you? Because you go resell that on eBay.
Yeah, I need to tell her. Listen, do you remember? I remember, like, outside after, he was probably so happy that he got that. I remember talking to him and asking him, like, okay, do you understand what you got there? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, there's no way I was letting that box go. And I was just like, man, fuck you. I wanted that.
Yeah, I would have bid against that guy on purpose.
I should have.
Like, knowing I wouldn't have had the money, I would have just been like, all right, I'm bidding the guy.
You know what I should have done is I should have won the box.
1,000 right here. And be like, and look at him like, yeah, buddy.
Flip him off.
What you gonna do now?
I should, man.
And then you have to go up to the auction and be like, I'm sorry, man, I forgot my wallet, and then just get out of there.
I should have entailed some, there was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 long boxes there. I really should have employed some dirty tricks and just been like, oh, that issue made it over to the long box of Image Comics. Whoops. That would have been dirty. Okay. So enough about the past, the horrible, horrible past. Let's talk about what happened about a week ago. $825 for Amazing Spider-Man 129.
Yeah, that's
fair.
A pretty good price for that. That's on target.
Yeah. Now let's go up next. This is the one where you were kind of scratching your head. $850 for 3 books of Batman, 251, 252, and 253.
Right.
Any idea?
No.
251.
So one of the issues has the appearance of Shadow in it. One has a Joker cover, and I don't know the significance of these issues or why they would sell for approximately about $200 a piece. I think I looked up a CGC one with the Shadow on it, and then 9.2 or something sold for like $350. So obviously they must. What was this sold to? Was it sold on site? Oh no, it was online. So,
this was online. $850 online.
So 3 bucks. I'd tell you what.
Congratulations. I'm just kind of looking through here just to see if anything. The Spook's origin showed up in 252, 253 was the Shadow, like you were talking
the appearance
about.
of any significant character.
No, man. 251 had, just like you said, there was a Joker cover. There was a Philly Jack Barton appears only as a corp. Packy White, only appearance dies. Albie, only appearance dies. Bigger Melvin, only appearance dies. Bing Hooley.
Okay, CGC 8.0, a 251 sold for $430.
Why?
I don't know. I guess this is a hot issue. 7 sold for $310.
I'm looking for trivia.
Oh, I was not aware of it.
Okay, I'm going to read this to you. Here we go. It says, notes, this issue is historically significant for the following reasons. It marks the Joker's return to his violent roots. After being portrayed as a mass murderer during the early years of the Golden Age, Joker was reduced to being an annoying prankster on the late years of the Golden Age and on his scarce appearances during the Silver Age. With this story, many elements of the Joker's original portrayal were updated and remain to the present day a constant feature in the development of the character. The story also makes it relevant the fact that criminals like the Joker are held in a mental hospital for the criminally insane. While some Golden Age stories also mention mental hospitals for the Joker and other villains, the idea had been largely forgotten during the entire Silver Age, and the concept is first revisited in this issue. Arkham Asylum would make its first official appearance as Arkham Hospital in 258, only 7 issues after this one. The issue also marks the permanent return of Batman's Rogues Gallery after several years of absence. So I don't know. I guess the big thing is the Joker's return to his violent roots, because not too long after this, what was this, 1973? So about 16 years later, he's got the crowbar and he's beating the shit out of Jason Todd.
In 2007, it sold for $59, and in 2017, it sold for $525. So there you go.
What the hell?
Same grade.
All right, so save your money on the $850 there and take $400, put it along with it, and you can move on up to Our Army at War number 83. Boy, did this one take me by surprise, not because I didn't know what the hell was going on in this book. Shortly thereafter, I figured it out, because this thing went for $1,250. Golden Age Dave, what is the significance of Our Army at War? 83.
First appearance of our beloved Sergeant Rock.
Sergeant Rock, you read too. Have you ever read much with him in it?
No. Let me say first true appearance of Sergeant Rock, currently listed as number 15 on Overstreet's top 50 Silver Age comics.
Oh, wow. No kidding. We did a source material on a book that was, oh man, I've lost all. I actually got the book in one of the box lots that I won at this auction, and I cannot remember what it was. The only Sergeant Rock book I've ever read, and it's a story that was told probably back in the 90s. It was actually a really good book, but the character of Sergeant Rock, I've honestly could care less. But there are clearly a lot of people that respect Sergeant Rock. So much for this thing to go for $1,250. Go ahead.
I think it is maybe a rare comic too. I mean, I'm looking at Heritage, so a .1.
.1? How do you have a .1?
Sold for $286.80. So
what is a .1?
a .1.
I mean, that is like.
Here.
Is there a cover involved?
Yeah, there's a cover on this one. No, they don't. Well, incomplete. So
when you say incomplete, what's that mean? Like missing a page or
some pages? But it does have a cover.
I've never. Well, that's probably where the .1 comes in, because it's like it has a cover.
Oh, centerfold missing. There you go.
Centerfold.
Yep.
Now that kind of depresses me, because I got the first appearance of Poison Ivy for really, really cheap, but it doesn't have the damn centerfold. Yep.
Well, it's a .1.
No.
But remember, this still sold for $286 as a .1. So
yeah, that ain't bad.
I mean, I have .1 comics too. I have some Golden Age stuff. I mean, I have like a Marvel Comics number 10 or something that's like a .1. You know, and I still paid like $300 for it, but it's a Marvel Comics number 10.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's worth me.
This was bought on site, and I think it was fun to be in the presence of this. That was one thing I just couldn't, I couldn't pass this auction up, because it wasn't so far away to where I didn't want to take part in it. I wanted to be there to experience these comics in the same room as I am and watching these comics go and see how much they were going to sell for. So, of course, I paid attention to the Spider-Man 129, and that actually sold on site along with this Our Army at War. It sold on site as well, and it was so cool because after people would win it, there'd be like a round of applause. I'd be like, "Yeah, way to go, man! You got a comic, sweet."
But that's a good price for that book, so it's definitely, I think, probably worth that.
All right. Well, let's move it on up. We're getting into our top two here. Probably two of the most iconic books in Marvel history, in my opinion. Both of them mutant related, too. We got number two coming in at $1,500, sold online. X-Men Giant Size, number one. All right. Break it down for us, man. Tell me all about it, Golden Age Dave. What do we got here?
This would be the first appearance of pretty much all the current most popular X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
You got Colossus, you got Storm, Nightcrawler, you got second appearance of Wolverine, full appearance. So a lot of, and a reboot of the entire series. For a while there, the X-Men was pretty unpopular, and they were just reprinting the old stories. I think from issue 70 to 93, there's a lot of reprints in there, and then this was the reboot. So pretty popular comic.
Yeah. Definitely. What do you think? 1,500? You think that's worth it?
Not for an ungraded copy, but hey, want to throw down some money? Why not?
Why not? All right.
I do actually have a giant size X-Men one in my own collection.
Do you really? Nice. Very nice.
And it's not. I did not pay $1,000, $1,500.
Man, well, how long ago was it when you bought it?
Oh, I don't know. 10 years ago.
Was this a bookery book?
Yep.
Was it really?
Yeah.
No kidding. All right, so that was number two. And number one, I think we talked about it a little bit here earlier. This is the first time I've ever been in the presence of this book, and that was Incredible Hulk number 181, first appearance of Wolverine, going for $2,300. Now I want to look at this again because I can't remember if this one had this one has the writing on it up at the top, but first appearance of Wolverine.
Well, yeah, it's a comic that sells for a lot of money in any grade. I mean, I almost purchased one a couple years ago at a comic convention that was missing the Marvel value stamp.
Tell me what that is, because you said that on the when we were talking. You were like, "It better have the stamp." I was like, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about."
Okay, well, in the 70s, I guess Marvel had this thing where they had these stamps in the comic, and then they gave you a book, and you could cut the stamps out and put them in a book.
Okay.
So it was like a stamp of I don't know, one of the Marvel characters, and you cut it out and put it in your little stamp book, and then you get all the characters in great. But unfortunately, it ruins the value of the comic. So I have a lot of I don't have a lot, but I do have comics where the stamps removed. And in particular with this Hulk 181, certainly if you're paying $2,000 for it, you better be sure that it has it in it. But if you're paying $200 for it, I've been to a comic show, and there was a guy there selling one, and he wanted, I think, $300 for it with the Marvel stamp missing. And I said, "Well, I'll give you $200." He wouldn't negotiate with me, so I didn't buy it. But
yeah,
it still has some value even without the stamp. But this comic, obviously, a really low grade copy will sell for a couple $100.
Yeah.
But for an ungraded CGC, ungraded by CGC, this is pretty penny to pay for it. Most ungraded ones would, I think, probably sell for around $1,000.
Dude, this guy spent $2,300, 15% buyer's premium. I mean, that boggles my mind.
Sold for the most recent sale in Heritage, March 18th. CGC 9 sold for $3,346.
So okay. Now, how much was that again? 3,000 what?
$3,346 for a CGC 9.
Okay.
7.5 sold for $2,151.
Let me just stop you there real quick because I want to do some math. 33.46. All right. So this guy, he spent $2,300, 15% premium, which is another we're going to say $300 on top of that. So yep. all together, and then I think that's it. I don't know if he had tax, but $2,600. So he paid $700 for this ungraded book under what was, you said, a CGC 9?
Yes.
Went for maybe $700 more. It's still a lot of money, I guess. $700 is a good bit, but I certainly would not call this a 9. And you have no idea if it's a 9. I mean, if you're missing that stamp and you don't know if that stamp's there, what does that do? What would you say that would bring it down to?
$200.
That doesn't bring it down $200. It brings it down to $200.
Yeah, $200. Well, I mean, probably more than that, but it would certainly not be worth that much. But I do think, the auctioneer, when they started the auction, they sent out a message saying they verified the Incredible Hulk 181 is complete. I think it did. I mean, it did have the stamp and everything, but it's still a lot to pay for,
being off-site, not being there, not being able to touch it, not being able to look at it.
And no warrant to the grade. I mean, maybe the guy called in advance and, talked to the auctioneer. They told him what the grade was. But, I don't know. I mean, it's not listed anywhere. So
Yeah, and they didn't take pictures of it. They certainly, they took, let's see. They took, there's 1, 2, there's the back, and then I think there's the insert. What's the stamp look like?
It's tiny. I mean,
really?
Literally, it's the size of a stamp.
And it's on the inside. It's on the inside of the comic.
Yes.
Okay.
When I get off here, I'll pull one of my comics that has a stamp cut out, and I'll send you a picture of it.
Yeah, do that. I mean, they got like an insert here. There's a bunch of ads, so I don't know if it's.
If you have any comics from the 70s, just open it up. There's a Marvel value stamp in there.
Okay. All right. Well, we have discussed quite a few comics tonight. I had a good time talking about it with you. We got to go through the top 10 that was sold. Man, there were so many other good ones I'd love to bring up, like first appearance of Ghost Rider, which apparently sold for, my goodness, well, never mind. I had it in front of me. It made me want to sell my first appearance of Ghost Rider. I'll put it that way. I was like, oh man, I need to get off this thing. I didn't see any first appearance of Harley Quinn, by the way. I looked and looked.
I got a Ghost Rider 2 out of a lot I bought on Heritage, and they didn't even have it listed in the lot.
Oh, wow. That flew under the
radar.
radar.
A lot of 60 Bronze Age comics, and they didn't even have it in the description. And I got it in the mail. I was like, oh, wow, Marvel Spotlight number, 5. Wow, first Ghost Rider.
Dang, that's not too bad. Dude, it went for a good bit. I'm trying to find it here. Like, I got 325. Marvel Comics. They had Marvel Comics Ghost Rider number 5, but it was Marvel Spotlight number 5. All right. Well, as much as I'd love to continue on, it's getting late. Let me just tell you, Dave, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
I absolutely love talking auctions with you. Sometimes me and you will be on the phone, and I wish I had the opportunity to turn it into an episode right there. Because we talk comics, we talk video games, and we talk all sorts of fun stuff. And I'm just like, well, at least now I've got you on here. We've got a good episode to go. I did have the opportunity to bid on some stuff for Dave, and I got him almost nothing.
Yeah, we had a little miscommunication problem.
Well, dude, it was right there in that middle of that damn warehouse, and you call me, and I can hear you perfectly fine. You cannot hear me over the auctioneer going, 29. I'm like, well, I don't know.
We got one lot. That's all right.
Yeah, we got one lot. I just looked at those up there earlier. Nice little run of Batman, so we'll have to get those to you.
And then I went and bought some stuff on Heritage just to make myself feel better. And I got some of the issues on that were selling there for a lot cheaper, so I felt good.
Oh, all right. Well,
Captain America, first Ra's al Ghul. So
nice, very nice. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been our coverage of the greatest auction I've ever been to in my entire life. The 50,000 comic book auction, April 6, 2018. If there's ever another one that comes along that even compares to this, you can guarantee damn well that I will be on here doing a podcast about it again. I do have, if anybody's interested, you can go to the Source Material Facebook page. You can take a look at every single one of those graphic novels that I won. If there's something in there that you're interested in, my wife would probably love for you to shoot me a message and say, hey, I'll give you $5 for this. Make back my cost. But no, you can check out the pictures on there. I got stuff from Marvel, DC, Vertigo, all the way over to some weird independent titles. I got like a run of Conan graphic novels. I ended up coming home with a lot of stuff that I probably will enjoy reading at some point in my life, but it won't be anytime soon. So All right, let's go ahead and get on out of here. Golden Age Dave, once again, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I'm glad you got to get on here with me. My name's Jesse Starcher. That's Golden Age Dave. We are taking you out of here. Everybody have a good one. Bye. Bye.